Hi, and welcome to this episode of John's Motorcycle Rescue and Review. And in this episode, I'm going to give you an update on the 1979 Honda CB750 project. As you can see, I have been pulling stuff off of it. I've gone over that in some previous episodes. Right now, I'm waiting for a couple of carburetor parts, so I have started to change the oil on the bike. And I just wanted to go over a couple of things here. When you change the oil on a CB750, there are a couple things to look out for. First of all, you've got your oil filter housing. This goes in the front of the engine. There's a spot, there's actually a notch for this guy to sit in. So you put it straight on like that. When I do this job, I actually always use the high flow filters. I use the HF401. And the reason I do that is it comes with the O-ring for the oil filter housing. It also comes with the O-ring for the oil filter, the nut in this shaft that goes up through the oil filter. When you do one of these, one of the most common things I see is parts not in the right order. And so I'm just going to assemble this, show you how they should go. First of all, this goes down through. That should sit like that. Now it has the new oil filter ring installed, the new O-ring on this guy. Next, we have the spring. Let me wipe that off there. I don't put them on the ground normally. So that goes on. Next item here is the oil filter washer. This guy almost never makes it on because what happens is it sticks to the bottom of the oil filter when people take the oil filter off. That actually goes on, and then your oil filter goes next. And I don't want to mess that up too much there. It's kind of being a pain. I'll actually probably spin that on a little bit, kind of thread that on. Oh, there we go. So that is ready to put back on the bike, and I clean that out as well. I put a little bit of grease behind this oil filter ring, this O-ring. Otherwise, they can kind of pop out, like you saw that just did there. But you want to make sure that this doesn't pop out or get kinked when you're putting it on, and the grease actually helps hold everything on. The other thing that you need to make sure you have this little washer here on your drain plug. That is sometimes missing. If you're missing that, you can check in the bottom of your oil pan, or just go buy a new one. You should change these every couple of oil changes anyways, and they're inexpensive. All of your motorcycle shops will have them. So now that this is ready, I'm going to put the drain plug back in. I'm going to screw this back on. You don't have to over tighten it. You just want to snug it down against that O-ring to 12 millimeter. So, you know, if you start bearing down on that, you can cause some damage. Needs to be tight, but not overly so. And same with this guy. You know, you want to snug it up, tighten it up, but you don't have to put it on like you're a gorilla. All right, I am underneath the CB750, and I am going to reinstall the drain plug here. It's pretty much right in the middle of the motor. Can't miss it. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is replace the oil filter housing. I've got the oil filter in, I've got the new O-ring on, and a little 12 millimeter wrench here. So I've got it started. If you get a lot of resistance, don't keep going. You don't have it in right. So it's turning easily. I'm watching the notch up on the top, making sure that's going to go in between those two. There's the fin on the top with the beefed up area, and that goes between the two notches there. So there we go, snug but not overly tight. And now I'll go ahead and fill the motorcycle with 3.7 quarts of 10W40 motorcycle specific oil. I'm using motorcycle specific 10W40. Really doesn't matter which brand you use as long as it's specified for the bike. Okay, now it's showing a little bit above the mark here, but it hasn't gotten circulated oil to the oil filter yet. So we'll go ahead and I may turn it over a little bit with the starter. But what I did ahead of time, instead of sitting here and trying to figure out when I had a third of a quart left, because it basically takes 3.7 quarts, I took this and in a container that has a sight glass, I poured out a third of a quart into that clean container, and that way I knew I had 3.7 quarts left, and I could just empty this in there. So the oil is changed. I will finalize this level once I have the carburetors back on and I can run it for a little bit and then check the engine oil, do a final oil level check there. But we have gotten the fluids changed in the engine. So we're going to also today try to get the front brake fluid flushed out, new fluid in there, and go from there. In the intro video, I said that I may have to replace the front wheel and the front fender. I didn't know how they would clean up. So what I did was spend some time with some polish, a little bit of steel wool, fine steel wool, and there are still some minor dents here in the front fender, but it did shine up nicely. It's really not bad. It's got a little bit of surface pitting, but it came out nicer than I thought. The front wheel also, for as awful as it looked, came out very nice. I haven't done anything on the spokes, but the actual rim itself I've cleaned. There is still some pitting that I really can't get rid of. There's not a whole lot of helping that, but for the most part, you know, people aren't going to notice that right away. It's not a highly visible item. At some point, if I can get a brand new wheel, I will. But I just thought I'd try to get that cleaned up, and I'm happy with the way it turned out, especially with what I started with. Like I say, I haven't done anything to the rear wheel, but that looks nice. I haven't started cleaning the shocks up. I've wiped the exhaust down a little bit, and that looks like it's going to clean up pretty great, actually. And I've done a little bit of work on the tank. I've just used a little bit of cleaner wax. I certainly haven't buffed it or anything like that, but just got the dust off, really. And I'll keep working on it. Now the side covers, as I said, there's corrosion, and there's not a whole lot you can do about that. I've ordered a new lens for this front turn signal. I'm waiting for that to come. You can see there is corrosion there. There's a little bit of paint gets chipped there. I'll have to address that. I would really like to pressure wash the bike and give it a good cleaning before I start polishing and doing some of this stuff, just to kind of get a good baseline for where I'm starting. But she's coming along. The carburetors are still on the bench. I'm actually going to go up one size on the Pilot Jets. Bikes of this era were notoriously lean. I don't want a lean running bike. I like bikes that heat up right away and I can just pull out and ride pretty much as soon as I start them up. So I always, on the vintage stuff, I like to go one up on my Pilot Jets. That honestly solves a whole lot of carburetor jetting issues that people have. Most of it's just the lean EPA jetting that the manufacturers were forced to put in the bikes. I was able to get an OEM license plate holder for this bike, so I'll actually clean that up with a wire wheel and repaint it. It has just a little bit of surface rust on it, and we'll go ahead and put that on. It'll be ready for a tag.